So we were talking, and you mentioned it again in terms of Groupon, that channel expansion. Do you think that people forgot how powerful email was until, Groupon and Living Social exploded in the last year or two?
Yeah, I think email is an underestimated channel of communication.
Yeah.
I think we have gotten in a mode of, you know, consumers are already very accustomed to what they're getting from an individual retailer, an individual person, or individual group. And then when you use email in an innovative business model, all of a sudden it's like, wow, it's really refreshing. But that just proves the point that relevance is what matters, right? Whether the business model brings relevance or, once people get into a mode where it sort of becomes, okay, I've seen that before, then you start to lose your edge. And I think those business models just prove that if you can keep things fresh and you can be relevant, then it really matters. People pay attention.
Do you think that, so you mentioned social, and we were talking about this earlier, do you think, and it sounds like there's specialty cases to over-index or under-index on certain channels, right?
Yeah.
That social is getting way more investment than traction proves, based on the data that we're...
I don't think so. I think you have to invest ahead of the curve there. I really think you have to invest in the future with social. So, again, we were talking about it earlier. I believe that social, while its effects on commerce are still being defined, effects on the brand are well known, right? Everybody knows that word of mouth is a tremendous aspect of brand equity. And social just makes that more real and more quantifiable in a lot of ways. We've never been able to know how much word of mouth really directly influences our sales. It's always been sort of a difficult thing to measure. Now that it's right in front of us, it's more tantalizing.
Yeah.
You got to be investing to figure it out. So you start by figuring out what kind of brand experience you want people to have through social, and then you start to figure out eventually, I think, how that translates into, let's say, direct selling, right, or commerce. It's not to say that it should be all about that, because social has so many different uses. It's not just about commerce.
Yeah.
Customer service aspects of social, what people are calling social CRM now, is a very important part of social. That may ultimately become one of the primary means of using it in the end. But it's an open opportunity right now.
So
but if you're not in the game, you can't figure it
No,
out.
that's a fair
Let's
point.
go back to Groupon for a second.
Yeah.
Groupon is social shopping, right? The fact that the deal is on only after a certain number of people, in a community who is fundamentally a local community, looking at an offer, that's social shopping. It's a great application of social, right? Because if I want that deal, I'm going to forward it to my friends because I want that deal to be on, right? To me, that's a great commerce-related social sort of environment, right?
Yeah, and it's a combination of a traditional channel like email, the trusted, it's a trusted channel that everyone online is, it's sort of our social security number, right?
Right.
So it's a little bit more intimate than, say, a tweet.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point, though.
Yeah.
So I told you, I had 4 or 5 questions. The last one is, where does, we talked about, and MBS touches a ton of areas of commerce and retailing and marketing.
Right.
Where do we fit? Where does MBS fit in that client engagement? I'm going in after a Fortune 200 retailer wants to do something and get ahead of the curve.
Right.
Where are we fitting here?
Well, I think the more I think about it, MBS is the glue that holds everything together, right? We have great data, integration technologies and technologies that allow marketers and others who have an interest in customer data to get access to it and really understand consumer behaviors. So, the proliferation of data only makes us more valuable, right? Working with sister companies that are gathering digital analytics data about advertising and media mix and all of that, or specific channels like email or other, just make me feel more enthusiastic about the value we can bring, because we can help to make sense of it all from a platform standpoint, a data and technology platform standpoint, and then help to interpret it and make sense of it for clients. Because in the end, all the data and technology in the world is not going to help solve the business problem if you don't have the right people and the right view to it.
But
right?
to your point earlier, doing some sort of marketing arm with no data is kind of like fishing at night. Right?
Yeah.
You're hoping you're throwing into the lake,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So
It's data driven, it's customer driven,
Yeah.
and that is fundamentally the core value proposition that we have, is making sense
Okay.
of all that.